Maybe next time don't bring your kids everywhere, it's embarrassing, my stepbrother sneered, laughing loud enough for the whole living room to hear. His fiancée giggled, her manicured hand resting on his arm like she'd found her prize. I smiled quietly. The kind of smile you learn after years of pretending family means something. Hi everyone, my name is Melissa Grant. I'm 34. And I used to believe blood made people kinder, until I realized it just made betrayal cut deeper. Sometimes I wonder, how many times can silence taste like self-respect before it turns into regret? I'd covered half the engagement cost. The hall, the decor, even the catering. My invoice, my savings, my quiet way of helping him start his new life. He had no father to handle things, and I thought maybe, just maybe, kindness could rewrite our history. The morning of the event smelled of roses and arrogance. Everyone was in pastel, Instagram-ready smiles masking the cracks that only family could see. My kids, Emma 10, and Noah 8, were excited. They'd even made a handmade card saying, "Congratulations, Uncle." We arrived a little early. I was fixing Noah's tie when I saw it, the sign taped right to the gate. "Do not admit, children not allowed. Violators will be removed." Beneath it were photos of my children, cropped from my own Facebook. For a moment I thought it was a cruel joke. But when my stepbrother's best man stepped out, smirking, and said, "Orders from the groom, it's adults only now," I realized humiliation was the plan. I turned to Emma and Noah. Their smiles had vanished. I took their hands and said softly, "Come on, sweethearts. We don't stay where love doesn't." The silence in the car on the way home was heavier than anything I'd ever felt. My daughter whispered, "Did we do something wrong, Mom?" I swallowed every emotion trying to escape. "No, baby," I said. "They did." 2 hours later my phone rang. A man's voice, cold and deliberate. "The engagement is off. They're on their way to your house to beg. Do not answer the door." And just as I hung up, I heard a knock. A slow, desperate knock. That's when the real story began. I stood frozen, the phone still warm in my hand. The knock came again, louder, steadier this time, like guilt had found its rhythm. Through the curtain I saw them. My stepbrother, his fiancée, her father trailing behind like a man dragged into someone else's storm. The same people who had laughed while my kids' faces were printed under, "Do not admit." Noah peeked from the hallway. "Mom, they're here." I nodded once. "Lock the door." I didn't move to open it. I let the silence do what words never could. For years I'd been the fixer, the peacemaker, the one who paid and stayed quiet. But that night I learned silence could also be a sentence. They knocked again. Then again. Finally his voice, cracked and frantic, "Melissa, please. It's not what it looks like." I almost laughed. Not what it looks like. There were photos of my children on a gate. There were laughs echoing while my daughter cried in the car. There was a public humiliation that no apology could dress up. "Melissa," his fiancée screamed. He didn't mean it. Her makeup was smudged now, her perfect voice trembling. For the first time she looked human. I didn't answer. I went to the living room, turned on the lights, and opened the curtains just enough for them to see me, standing there with my children beside me. I wanted them to look at the faces they'd turned into a warning sign. I mouthed only 2 words, "Not today." Her father stepped forward, shaking his head. "You were right," he said quietly. "The engagement's off. I don't want a man like that in my family." And just like that, the same voice that had called me embarrassing was on his knees begging on my porch. But I didn't open the door. I just held my children close and whispered, "We're not begging anymore." Outside, thunder rolled across the sky, the kind that feels like justice arriving late but arriving still. They thought I'd ruined their engagement. They had no idea I was just getting started. By morning the whole town knew. The engagement was officially called off. My stepbrother's smug Instagram post, "Finally marrying the love of my life," had vanished, replaced by silence. But gossip moves faster than truth ever can. At the grocery store I heard whispers trail behind me. "That's her," someone muttered. "The sister who paid for everything." Another voice chimed in, "Did you see that sign? Her poor kids." I walked past them calmly, head high. But inside something in me cracked, not from shame but from clarity. For years I had financed my family's pride, paid their debts, covered their bills, fixed their messes. And every time they'd made sure I stayed small enough to never be thanked. That morning I checked my bank app. The event payments had cleared, Every deposit gone. I took a slow breath. Then I opened my laptop. If they could post photos of my children for humiliation, I could post truth for balance. I uploaded screenshots. The catering invoice with my name, the decor receipt, the hall contract, the private text from my stepbrother saying, "You'll cover this, right? I'll pay you back after the honeymoon." No captions. Just quiet, cold evidence. Within hours my post exploded. People began tagging him, asking why his sister had paid for an event that excluded her own kids. His fiancé's friends commented under her engagement photos, "This you." The story spread like spilled ink. His phone must have been burning. That night Mom called. Her voice was trembling, caught between anger and disbelief. "Melissa, why did you have to make it public?" "He's family." I stared at the phone and said calmly, "He stopped being family when he put my kids on a sign." She didn't reply. Just silence, the kind that confirms truth. By midnight he'd deleted every social media account. I wasn't celebrating. I wasn't even satisfied. I was quiet. Because deep down I knew this wasn't revenge. This was only exposure. And exposure is just the beginning of real reckoning. And reckoning was coming next. 2 days later a letter arrived. Not an apology, a demand. It was from his lawyer. A notice claiming defamation and emotional distress because my post had caused reputational damage. I almost laughed. The irony of a man who taped my children's faces to a "Do not admit" sign now crying about public humiliation felt biblical. I called my own lawyer, a soft-spoken woman named Irene, who believed justice didn't need shouting, only patience. She read the letter twice then smiled. "He doesn't have a case. But if he wants a fight, we'll give him one." Meanwhile, the town wasn't done talking. The florist leaked messages showing that my stepbrother never paid a cent. All invoices traced back to me. His fiancé's father released a statement online, confirming he'd called off the engagement after discovering deceit and character issues. For once, truth had better PR than lies. But with every truth exposed, my mother grew colder. "You're destroying your own family," she snapped one night on the phone. I whispered, "No, Mom. I'm just refusing to clean their mess anymore." The silence between us stretched like a wire ready to snap. She sighed and hung up. That night I sat at the kitchen table, my laptop glowing in the dark. My kids slept upstairs, the house quiet except for the hum of the fridge and my heartbeat. I opened a new document and started writing. Not a post this time, but a statement. A record. I listed every favor, every expense, every message. Dates, amounts, receipts. Years of proof that I'd carried a family that never carried me back. By sunrise the document was 30 pages long. I titled it, "The Price of Silence." And as the first light hit the windows I knew, this wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about reclaiming truth before it got rewritten. I closed the laptop, poured myself coffee and whispered, "Let's see how loud silence can get." Because the storm I was about to unleash wasn't online this time. It was legal. The next morning I printed the entire 30-page file. Each page smelled faintly of ink and closure. I slid the stack into a folder labeled Financial Record, Melissa Grant vs. Daniel Cole. My stepbrother's name looked strange next to mine, like two puzzle pieces that never belonged together. Irene, my lawyer, met me at a small downtown cafe. She wore gray, the color of storms that don't warn before they break. "He wants to play legal games," she said, sipping her espresso. "Then let's introduce him to the rulebook." We filed a civil counterclaim, repayment for all engagement expenses and emotional damages caused by public defamation of my children. Irene added a quiet note, "We're not asking for vengeance. We're asking for accountability." That line stayed with me. By evening the news had shifted again. Screenshots of the lawsuit leaked online. Hashtags began trending. #DoNotAdmitGate and #JusticeForMelissa. People I didn't know were writing things like, "Imagine humiliating a mother and thinking she'd stay silent." Mom stopped answering my calls. She sent one text, "You've made us a laughingstock." I typed back, "No, Mom." He did. Then deleted it before sending. Some messages are better left unsent. Their silence heavier than reply. That night I watched Emma and Noah sleep. Their small hands clutched the stuffed animals I'd bought years ago. The same hands that had once held that "Congratulations, Uncle" card. I whispered, "You didn't deserve any of this." Outside, rain began to fall. Soft at first, then steady, washing the dust off my windows, like the world trying to cleanse something it couldn't understand. I thought about how justice sometimes doesn't roar. Sometimes, it walks in quietly with paperwork and patience. Tomorrow, Daniel would receive his first court notice. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't scared of confrontation. I was ready for it, because I'd learned something vital. Silence protects peace. But truth? Truth protects legacy. The official court summons arrived 2 days later, stamped and signed in blue ink. My favorite color once, but now it looked like defiance. I placed it on the kitchen table beside a mug of cold coffee. Emma and Noah were at school. The house was silent except for the ticking clock. That sound you start hearing clearly only when life finally slows down enough to make sense. Daniel tried calling me that afternoon. I didn't pick up. The voicemail was frantic. Mel, please. It's gone too far. I'll pay you back. I'll apologize, just stop this. But apologies are currency that only work before debt becomes history. Instead, I forwarded the message to Irene. She replied with 3 words, perfect. Keep everything. Later that night, I stopped by Mom's house. She opened the door just far enough to see me but not enough to invite me in. Her voice was low, trembling. He's your brother. No, Mom, I said softly. He's your son. That's the difference. She looked away, eyes glistening with something between shame and anger. You always had to prove you were better. I smiled faintly. No, I just stopped pretending I was less. The next morning, Daniel showed up at my office. His suit was wrinkled, eyes red from sleepless nights. Melissa, please just withdraw it. I'll sign anything, I'll pay everything. I can't lose my job over this. I looked him dead in the eye. You didn't think about jobs when you printed pictures of my kids. He fell silent. The air between us was thick with all the words we'd never said. I stood up, slid the folder across the desk. Sign this, I said. A written apology. Full repayment. Public acknowledgement. He hesitated. Then he signed. Irene called it a settlement. I called it freedom. When I walked out of the office, the world smelled like rain again. Clean, cold, and finally fair. The ink on Daniel's signature hadn't even dried when I realized something. Justice doesn't end with repayment. It ends when peace stops feeling like an apology. I deposited the refunded money into a new account under Emma and Noah's names. Their future had been mocked once. Now it was protected. I didn't tell anyone, not my mother, not even Irene. Some victories are meant to stay private, sacred. A week later, I got a letter in the mail. It wasn't official, no stamps or seals. Just folded paper handwritten in uneven lines. Melissa, I can't face you, but I see what I did now. I let jealousy make me cruel. She's gone. The engagement, the job, the friends, all gone. You were the only person who believed in me and I turned that into poison. Daniel. I read it twice. Not to forgive him, but to remember. Because memory is a better teacher than mercy. That weekend, Mom showed up unannounced. She looked smaller, older. He's moving away, she said quietly. Said he can't stay here after all this. I nodded. Maybe that's best. She looked around my house. The framed drawings my kids made, the air that finally felt light again. You did all this on your own? Always have, I replied. Her eyes softened. Your grandmother used to say, blood is only sacred if it carries kindness. For the first time in years, we sat together without argument. I made her tea. She didn't apologize, but her silence felt different this time. Not avoidance, but recognition. Later that night, I went out to the porch. The same one they'd once knelt on, begging forgiveness through a locked door. The rain had stopped, but the earth still glistened. I closed my eyes and whispered, we're done carrying what doesn't belong to us. From inside, I heard Noah's laughter. Light, alive, whole. It sounded like everything I'd ever fought for. But I wasn't finished yet. There was still one thing left. A message not for them, but for every woman who'd ever been silenced by family guilt. A few weeks later, the noise faded. No gossip, no calls, no headlines. Just stillness. The kind that follows after every storm when you realize peace isn't loud. It's earned. I sat on the porch one evening with a cup of tea, the same porch where everything began. The air smelled like jasmine and fresh soil. The kids were playing in the yard, laughter echoing off the walls that once held our silence. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for the next betrayal. I wasn't explaining my worth. I was just existing, quietly, completely. A message popped up on my phone. From unknown number. Thank you for teaching me what dignity looks like. I knew it was Daniel. No name, no plea, just that one sentence. I didn't reply. Some lessons are meant to stay unspoken, sealed in the space between consequence and growth. Later that night I wrote something in my journal. The one I'd started after therapy when Irene told me to turn pain into paper instead of posts. Forgiveness doesn't mean opening the door again. It means walking past it without flinching. Mom visited again a week later. She didn't bring apologies, but she brought peach cobbler, the kind Grandma used to make when we were kids. We sat in silence, watching Emma braid Noah's hair and laugh at his protests. Your grandmother would be proud of you, Mom whispered. I smiled. Not for the lawsuit. For surviving it with grace. When she left, I stood by the window watching her car disappear into the dusk. A slow, golden calm filled the house. I looked at my reflection in the glass. Steady eyes, softer smile. The woman who once paid for everyone's celebration had finally invested in her own peace. And this time there were no signs, no begging, no shame. Only silence. Pure, earned, deserved. But sometimes the sweetest revenge is simply not needing any.